Hey Sean, how's it going?
Going well, Dave. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's as we were saying before we started, it's been a while.
Uh, Definitely been a minute. It's definitely been a minute since I've seen
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yep. So you and I met, we were just talking about it at a filmmaker networking coalition thing back in around late 2000s, I guess, right? 2000.
Yes.
And at that time you were working on your first film,
Yes.
White Boy Brown.
Yes.
Which I actually took. I was going getting my grad degree, and I gave it to one of my teachers to watch.
Oh
I don't
wow.
know if you remember that. I think she
Yeah.
contacted you to show it somewhere, or she was supposed to. I don't know if she did that or not.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Some
It's
time ago.
so long ago. Yeah. She probably did. Can't
Yeah, they
remember.
were talking about about over a decade ago, so
Yep.
it's
Yep.
been a while.
Yeah, getting old, man.
Yeah, I know, I know. So since then, how many movies have you made in total?
Well, of my own, um, this is actually my third feature that I'm just about completed now. But
And
I had a
what's
yeah,
its name?
well, this one is called well, the English title is called Roar, but it's actually uh, what's funny. I chose the name Roar for in the beginning, and then I should have did this research before, but went on IMDb just to search out different titles, and for some reason now all of a sudden there's a bunch of roars.
Yeah,
Very small indie films. So I saw at least three, and I said, oh my goodness. So I kind of the producer who I'm working with, we kind of decided to try to find like a different I guess translation to roar, and we end up finding it was a west I'm sorry, northern Nigerian area. It's called Hausa, and they pronounce raw Ruri.
oh,
So I had to change the title. So it's just the same thing, raw, but it's just using that Nigerian translation.
that's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
So that's your third film as a
yeah.
director, and then
Yes, writer
you
director.
had a second film. What was that one?
Well, yeah, my second film was Pocket Full of Nickels, and it was very of course indie, um, little gritty film shot here in New York City.
Mhm.
So that was the second feature I did, and first one was White Boy Brown. So
Okay.
yeah,
And then the name of your indie film company is Stop and Watch, right?
yeah, Stop and Watch Films. Yep.
That's cool. Now, how'd you come up with that name?
Man, it's funny. I think at the time I was living in Staten Island, and we lived near Stop and Shop.
Okay.
And I always thought it was cool. So people kind of make jokes about it, but it's really there's some history with it.
Yeah.
Um, and I just thought it was a cool play on words. Like you can stop and then watch films, but then stop and watch.
Yeah.
So I said, let me roll with that because it's kind of cool
Yeah.
sounding. So yeah, that's how I
Yeah.
came up with that. So,
It
and
is.
that was back in 2008 when I started that one,
Okay.
the company
And
itself.
that's you're still making your films under that studio, right? Under that company?
Yes, yes, I am. Which is, I mean, it's very difficult to do things on your own, really. But actually, the guy who I'm working with now, he has a little production company. This producer I'm working with, he's actually an actor also, but he had a small role in my first feature,
Yeah.
but he started a little production company, and it's under his last name, Zuzanaga Entertainment. So this current film is under his company and my company as well. So
Okay. Okay, cool. And then, so have you also you've directed, you've written, you've done, obviously, indie films, you're going to be producing a lot of your own stuff too.
mhm.
Um, do you also do other things? You wear other hats as well?
I mean, I've collaborated, worked with other people. There was a couple of directors who asked me to come on as like a co-director.
Hmm.
There's a guy by the name of Edgar Jims, uh,
Hmm.
Edgar Jimenez. I worked with him.
Yep.
I think you've worked with him on something in the project,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for Clandestine,
Yes.
the last film we did, we had a bunch of SWAT guys, and he
Yes.
showed up with his team.
Yeah.
It made the movie look like it was like, a couple million
Hmm.
dollars. So,
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. All that equipment he has. Yeah.
oh my God, it was crazy.
So yeah. So I worked with him on two. I was AD on one of his films, and then I was a co-director on another short film that he did. Um, but I did a few, small music videos. Some guys asked me, shoot some of their music, stuff like music videos. So I'm just trying to, kind of stay busy within this realm, just to gain experience. So
Yeah.
that's about it. Yeah.
So what made I'm always interested. I love asking people because um, at this point, by the time this one goes up,
Mm,
this podcast,
mm,
I mean, it's nowhere near like other podcasts amounts, but I'm
mm,
always fascinated talking to the different guests, and
mm,
everyone's had a different reason for why they got into filmmaking
mm.
or creative aspirations or whatever it might be. So what is this something you always thought about? Is it something that just kind of came to you while you were doing something else? Like what made you want to do film?
So, I think it was unconsciously. Man, I used to watch so many movies as a kid. I was a huge television dude, growing up after school. I was talking to a friend recently, and we just like she mentioned like a line from Little Rascals, and then she was surprised that I got it. You know what I mean? Because I used to watch a lot of television, a lot of movies. I remember my mom. She took me, which is I don't know nowadays ACS would probably come get her, but she took me to see The Exorcist, and I was 5.
How old? 5?
Yeah, man, I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Because she was a big, horror film buff,
Yeah.
So she used to read a lot of, horror books and go to the movies a lot, see horror films. And I don't know why she took me to see Exorcist at that age, but I remember, hiding under, the seats and stuff. But yeah, I was always into at least watching movies. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but getting into it, I was working for the city, and I just had a story. I just had this short story in my head, and it kind of played out. So I wrote it down a little bit, and just forgot about it. But then, like, say maybe sometime later, I end up writing a full script, and then that's basically how I got into it. But I knew nothing about film production or how to go about making a movie.
Mhm.
So of course, I think YouTube. This was back in 2007. So YouTube was probably just starting out, getting big. I was doing some research as far as like how do you get into movies, making movies, and I think I saw someone he recommended working on a set, on a
Okay.
movie set, an actual movie set, and I jumped on Craigslist, and then I actually found uh, Jason Casado, and
Okay.
I reached out to him, and he was looking for PAs, and then I just fell in love ever since.
And then Jason, I
Hmm.
know when we were starting out, Jason was kind of like, the veteran guy who
Yes.
had already made, I think, one or two movies at that
Hmm.
point with a couple of guys I still keep. Eddie Hegan was a
Hmm.
guest last year.
Cool. Cool.
Al, so he was kind of working with this group of guys, and then
Hmm.
we had that filmmaker coalition group, and I
Hmm.
know Jason had put that together, and
Hmm.
so Jason he started making movies, I think, in the early to mid 2000s. Maybe I'm pulling this out of nowhere. It might have been like 2004. I
Hmm.
think he started making serious, flicks, not just hey, here's a video camera and I'm running
Yeah.
around the backyard or
Hmm.
whatever,
Yep. Yep.
like some of us had done.
Yep.
And then there was like it was really cool because in the late 2000s there was like this sudden growth of
Yes.
filmmakers, in New York, indie
Mm.
filmmakers, of guys and ladies who were just kind of like, hey, there's a technology is really getting
Mhm.
affordable. Like you can do a lot now,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that was even before the DSLRs and everything went crazy, crazy digital. I mean, we were
Mhm.
still um, shooting with tape.
It's a
We
tape.
not
Yes.
film. I mean, I had done some stuff with film, but it was like, student films back when I was in college.
Hmm.
And you're splicing everything together. But, by the late 2000s, we were shooting on tape, and then you had to digitize the tape so you could edit it.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
and as opposed to a short, like 5, 6 years later,
Hmm.
probably a little less, you were able to just ingest digitally right into your editing program and then just start going. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
but anyway, so I went off on a little filmmaking tangent. But
Well,
so
history.
Jason, you connected with Jason.
Yes, yes. Yeah, connected with Jason, and I just saw how he moved, on set. And like I said, I fell in love with it. Just being there on set, just the the chemistry between different I guess departments. The people were so cool. The DP that they had, I forgot everyone's name except I think his cousin. His cousin did the I think the sound, I believe. Um, but yeah, it was a good experience. And I met some actors there who I just thought were real cool. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was it. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And then, so what I always find interesting is like, until you start your films start getting maybe some development deals from a distributor or
Mhm,
anything like that, you're
mhm,
still working like the day job, which I find a lot of time feeds your storytelling. So,
mhm.
how do you feel your day job feeds your storytelling? Is it,
Yeah, you know what? That's 100%. Listen, it's like I was thinking about that recently too. I think you're better off, man. I think not necessarily like having a full-time job, but I mean, of course, you got to pay the bills and stuff. But I think, and it's just in my opinion, I think if you're not involved with something outside of just writing,
Mhm.
your writing can be kind of stale, or or it might just be the same. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but I just see that being in the community or being outside of your little circle uh, adds to your stories. You know what I mean? You pick up characters. You know what I mean? You pick up how people talk. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I think all those things are very important. But my job, I mean, the jobs I've had, I'm a supervisor at a shelter, homeless shelter for women.
Hmm.
And that was another story that was brewing. It's called a MICA shelter, which is mentally ill, chemically addicted
Hmm. Hmm.
population,
Yeah,
and it was just women. So that's a story in itself. I can once if I decided to write something along those lines, I can pull from the clients I worked with,
yeah,
would help me build characters. But I definitely think it's very important, and it helped me a lot. You know what I mean? Working a full time job. Although I mean, I would prefer to be making a living off of something that I really love to do.
yeah.
Creatively writing and directing and telling stories. So.
And then I didn't know you were involved in social services. That's interesting
Mhm.
because my background is in social work.
Oh wow.
Um, so I mean, that's the day job, is doing all that stuff. So
Mhm.
what I find nice about it is like, even though you're not doing what you love to do,
Mhm.
you're able at the end of the day to like close up your desk or whatever, your office, and
Mhm.
say that you helped some people.
Yes.
And that I find that really feeds the filmmaking and the creative stuff because it's about um, it's about finding something that's going to impact people.
Mhm.
That your work is something that you want people to
Mhm.
kind of walk away from and um, feel good.
Yes.
And not maybe not feel so divided,
Mhm.
or alone or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Everybody comes to a movie with a
Sure.
different thing.
Sure.
So do you feel that stuff, that working in the social services and helping people who really have it, rough? I know sometimes I'll sit there and have a little pity
Mhm.
party for a day or two where I'm like, oh, I'm not getting to do what I want. And
Yeah.
then you come across somebody who's like living on the streets or,
Yes. Yeah. Even, oh man, yeah, 100%, man. I mean, I've done, homeless outreach for years also. Just reaching out to the homeless, offering them services, bringing them into shelters. But these are real people. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
some have mental illnesses, but these are real people. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They have a story. If you because I had the opportunity to stop and talk to them, and then you do hear that story. You're like, man,
hmm
my goodness, and it's you can feel sad for them, but at the same time, that gives you the boost to kind of help them. You know what I mean? And it helps you get up in the morning to do your job.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't have it as bad as others. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it definitely does help. Uh, work, like I said, pulling stories from the clients or people that you encounter.
hmm
Even if it's unconsciously, it's something that sticks in the back of your head, or it's in your heart,
Yeah,
and you're writing it. You write it out. You know.
yeah.
Um, but definitely it has been a big help working in social services.
Yeah, it's funny. I found even just with acting that
Hmm.
there'll be something that I saw from somebody or somebody did something and it made a little like that little weird things that happens for creative people where you kind of goes in your head and you don't
Mhm.
pay much attention to it and
Mhm.
then 5 years later
Yeah.
where it comes out and you're like, oh, I'm going to use that motivation,
Right.
um, so I mean that's the thing I found to really be interesting is how that'll those moments sometimes even the way you respond to somebody.
Mm.
Somebody pushes a button or says something. What and
Mm.
that button could be positive or negative. It could be something that gets you really angry, or it could be something that gets you very compassionate.
Mm.
And you maybe stow it away, and then it comes up later with something.
Yeah. Yes.
So it is interesting. I know when I started acting. I forgot who it was. I think it was a family member. They joked, said, "Yeah, I want to be an actor. I want to do creative stuff." And they were like, "Oh, that's great. So what restaurant you going to be waiting tables at?"
Right.
No, it's like I said to myself, I'm not any chance in hell am I going to wait tables. Like I want to do so. I want to still be experiencing life because I just think that's going to
Mm.
feed and at that point, I had no interest in directing, writing, any of that. It was
Mm.
always just about acting. And then
Mm.
as time went on, it changed and it grew up, and it kind of morphed.
Mm.
But um,
Yes.
I just found that having those real experiences and having not that you don't have a real experience waiting tables because you're still dealing with challenges.
Hmm.
You're still dealing with conflict. Um, but I really wanted to learn what people are going through.
Hmm. Hmm.
What because ultimately people who are going to a restaurant, they have the money to go to a restaurant.
Hmm.
They are in a certain position. They may not be rich. I mean, we lived. My wife and I lived in Union City for about 3 years, and that you had a much wider uh, financial demographic of people there. And one of the things I loved about the community of it was there was a place called the Coach House Diner, which is one of the best diners I've ever been to. Um, and Friday night, you always it was pay night, payday, or pay week, whatever, because that place was jammed, and it
Hmm.
was like this big celebration of all different kinds of people saying, basically, we worked hard, now we play, and it
Yes.
was family and friends and all this other stuff, and I
Mm.
liked that because I felt like it was something that probably a lot of people might take for granted
Mm.
but the people in that area were not. It was something
Mm.
that was a huge portion of just celebrating. The week, and I think so. A waiter or waitress is going to see that,
Mm.
but I think like working those social service kind of jobs,
Mm.
you just see a
Yes.
whole different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And at the same time, nothing's. I remember recently, I just had a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about regrets, and I asked her, do you have any regrets? And one of the things and I've heard this before, but one of the things she said, she was like, no, I had no regrets, because basically everything is a lesson. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And then I really just recently, just started thinking about it, and it's like, nothing is wasted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, even conversations you have with a client or whatever, and the response that you get, if it's positive or negative. If it's negative, okay, now I know how to approach this, you know what I mean, this client, or not to say that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's nothing is wasted. We're always learning. You know what I mean? And we shouldn't stop learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or growing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely. So yeah, you fall, you stumble, you scrape your knee, but it's like you learn. Okay, you know what? Okay, if I get married again, certain certain holes I'm trying to avoid, certain things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's great, man. Even working with used to work at a homeless shelter for kids, Covenant House. I did that for a
Okay.
couple
Yeah.
of
I know
years.
Covenant House.
Yeah, and I used to tell the kids all the time. I said, like, listen, until you're dead, it's never over. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, it's over when you're put in the ground. You know what I mean? So to speak. But you're alive today. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday, or what happened yesterday, what failure or what fault. You have to keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's when it's over, it's over. But
Yeah.
today it's not over. So let's do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's being able to slip into different characters is really important with writing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You just it can be just tricky, because if you don't do that, then every character you're reading in the script could sound exactly the same.
Exactly. Yep.
And you have to be able to jump into, as a writer, well, what's the mindset what's the mindset of this character? How would they respond to this, what this character's saying, or this event? Well, it could be really interesting to drive the story forward, as I know this character's a certain way. So if this happens, what does that what will that do? And then the best part, when you write something and you love it and you realize it's taken you down a road that has nothing to do with your story. So now you have to decide, well, I'm going to just cut this out of my final draft and then save it for maybe a different story or a sequel or something, but it's now, do you enjoy writing? Because I know some people do, some people don't.
Man, I tell you, nope, I do not. What's weird about it? It's weird though. When I start writing, let me back up. It's the discipline that I don't like.
Okay.
It takes discipline to sit down. You know what I mean? And whether pen to paper, pen to pad, or on your laptop, it takes discipline. But once I start and then I'm in it, I love it. It's because it starts to develop. I remember my ex-wife was saying basically you have to be your first critic, your first audience, really. So if you're laughing, hopefully somebody else is going to laugh or cry or whatever emotion you're looking for. But the process of writing, I do sort of, it's like a love-hate thing. Like I said, it's the discipline of just sitting down and, okay, shut everything else off, and then you just get to it. But yeah, but once it's done, what I hate most really is probably rewrites. It's probably my least, the least thing I like more about it. But I know it's all necessary. But
it is. It's just I don't know. I have such an odd, writing is the only thing that I've done that I am so conflicted with still. Like I've written a lot of, fair share of the stuff that we've done, or we're planning to do. And every time I do it, it's like, oh man, I gotta do, it's like I gotta do those sit-ups today, I gotta do, and I'm just like, and then I try to, like, it's such a process, you know. And then I'm like, well, all right, let me get some coffee, and I'm going to put
Mhm,
that here, and then I'm going to take some things that I like, you know, I want to look at, to
mhm.
kind of think about something else, and I put them over there, and then I'll like maybe put some music on. Like I gotta woo myself. It's like I'm dating myself to write. And where other shit like directing or acting, I'm excited.
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yes.
okay, cool. You know,
Mhm,
let me. All right, yeah, we're gonna do this kind of shot, and I, with character
mhm,
wise, I can think of this. The act, you know, character would what's going on in their head, and
mhm.
writing. It's like I feel like I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just going in. I'm going in. You know, I'm going in for the
Mhm.
journey. It's like such a
I'll be back. I might be back.
yeah. I
Um,
might not. Don't know. We'll see. You know, but it's yeah. It's such a weird thing. And there's other people I know. They love it. They love writing. They
really?
love it. They love like our business partner Kate. She loves writing.
Mhm.
She loves it.
Wow.
She gets into the what she call it, the dramaturgy of it, and she's just
Mm.
like she does all this research and you know
Okay.
and I've enjoyed writing more now that I started collaborating with my wife Janine.
Hmm.
In that we'll sit down and we'll start batting ideas around,
Okay.
and that's
Nice.
become a lot more enjoyable. But when I'm just going in alone to
Hmm.
start, I really feel like I'm hunkering down in the bunker. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you have a similar feeling of just
Yeah.
like ah shit.
100. Yeah. 100%, bro. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, when I'm in it, and then it's developing, and even sometimes, it's not coming together. I'm like, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one thing that did help, honestly, yeah, just to be honest, like when something I read with man, it was a famous novelist. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. He ended up committing suicide. What's his name? Popular novelist. Well, anyway, one thing he said, he never has writer's block, right? And I was like, how's that possible?
Yeah.
What he does is that, or what he did, he actually he would end on a cliff note, like he would know, or like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
He,
Cliffhanger.
yeah, he would know what's coming next, but he wouldn't write it. He would stop.
Oh,
So which kind of, and I started to do that, and I saw that started to help. Um,
really?
yeah, so he would write, and then he would know the next scene, basically. So he would leave it right there, and write a little note, and then come back the next day and start over, and then it would start to flow again. You know,
Wow.
so I started to see that was working for me a little bit. Um, yeah, yeah,
So is that you're still using that?
yes, yes, I do that.
Yeah.
But I kind of have a different process. Like I would write it, like old school, like notebook, composition.
Yeah.
I love doing that. Like on a train, I love to write on a train. When I'm into it, um, and then I would put everything into the program, but
Yeah.
still use like pieces of paper and stuff like that. So things like that kind of encourages me a little bit,
Hmm.
because I can't do the just typing, you know,
Yeah.
the story that way. And I think a lot of you know there's just different things that kind of help me along. So obviously I'm doing it. I have to like it a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's true. I mean, there's something about it
Hmm.
you're enjoying, and I think it's
Hmm.
finding that I've tried outlining. I've tried
Hmm.
a book that was like write a screenplay in 10 days, and each day there was a different thing you were supposed to do.
Hmm.
I wrote one of my scripts off of that, and it definitely needs a lot of rewrites. So,
Okay. Okay.
um, and then uh, you know, another one was just throwing ideas back and forth with my wife, and
Hmm.
we kind of outlined where the story started, where the middle was, where it ended, and
Hmm.
then like a line of dialogue would pop into my head, or and
Hmm.
I would just write that down, and then or I'd type it because I type like a lunatic, but
Hmm.
um, and then the other thing I've noticed that'll happen a lot is I'll think of a specific scene I really like, and
Hmm.
I'll think I really like that scene. Like that's the scene of, and then they'll be like that
Hmm.
becomes almost like the seed, and then
Mm.
sometimes I'll develop the rest of the story based off of this scene that I listened to because there was some music that came on the radio, or
Mhm.
sometimes you're inspired by a scene in another movie,
Mhm.
and that then just stays with you
Mhm.
for years. It's funny, back in, was it 92, I think, or 91, I saw Basic Instinct,
Okay.
and they have a scene where Michael Douglas goes to, it looks like the Limelight. I don't think it was, but it
Mm.
was some like dance club, and it's just like total debauchery. And
Mhm.
he sees Sharon Stone there, and all, it's Basic Instinct. So a bunch of
Yeah.
crazy stuff happens.
Mhm.
Although I guess pretty tame considering that movie. But then so I thought about that. And at that point, I didn't really want to do anything creative.
Mhm.
And then I think in 96 or 98, I think it was, Blade came out, and they had the opening scene
Mm.
where all the vampires are doing the bloodbath or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And that reminded me of Basic Instinct.
Wow.
And then by that point, I had started getting into acting,
Mhm.
and I had done a little bit of writing. And then it's funny because then 10 years after that, or 12 years after that, I start thinking about both of those scenes, and then that goes into
Mhm.
something that we wrote and we're hoping to make after our upcoming movies. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting how that stuff happens.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Even phrases. I've come up with stuff. Like once in a while, I'll come up with a title. I'll just
Mhm.
get a title, and then I'll sit on that title for forever. I'll chew on it. It'll come back, or I'll think about what does that title mean, or how can I write around that title,
Yeah,
or just phrases. You're right. It comes from everywhere.
yeah,
Anywhere
yeah.
basically. So,
Yeah, I used to do write, like, oh, no, let me write that down. Let me write that
mhm,
down. Let me write that
mhm.
down. I don't
Yeah.
even know where any of those papers are, but I was always like writing, or let me write something. And then I
Yes.
got into texting. I would text
Mm.
myself something, to my own cell number. And then I
Mhm.
moved to emailing. And then I just was like, what am I doing? I just open up Word. I'll
Mhm.
just, if I can, if I'm out, then I'll send myself an email or something. But
Okay.
um, I think that's the thing about writing that drives me nuts, is I feel like, unlike acting and directing where you get
Mhm.
moments to rest, with
Mhm.
writing,
Mhm.
you're always, your brain is always going.
Yes.
It's always like those creative juices will not stop until they're
Mhm.
fulfilled. And
Yes.
you never get a moment of rest. And that's, for me, that's what
Mm.
I hate about writing, is that once that clicks
Mm.
in, it just doesn't stop. It's just like, let me write this. Oh, let me write this. You're sitting down, you're watching TV. No, let me write that. So
Uh-huh. Yeah, man. That's a true writer, man. Definitely a true writer. So
yeah,
yeah.
it's just, it's not that enjoyable, I have to say. Oh my
Oh,
God. So what do you got? What do you have planned next? Where do you want to see your films go, your career go? Are you just kind of going with it, or do you have kind of a plan?
you know what? When I first got into this thing here, this beast of just indie filmmaking, I was always attracted to like the unknown folks,
Yeah.
because I would really look up, I don't know, like certain movies, and I was like, oh, I wonder who did that movie, because I really liked it or enjoyed it, and it was you know more than likely it was done by a person who was unknown. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like for example, Robert Downey Jr., like his dad. I had for years. I didn't know who his dad was.
Yeah.
But this guy did a couple of indie films that were just amazing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And but I didn't know him as a director or writer and director. He came from advertising, and but I was always attracted to that. Really the unknown writer director. Someone who kind of who had things to say basically.
Hmm.
Um, and they weren't looking to be on stage or be put out there. You know what I mean? And of course, we want to be recognized for what we do, or people, see what we do. Um, I mean, I'm not pushing. I mean, if it happens, I'm still down. I'm down for it. Like I said, I would love to work or be able to survive and live off of writing and directing, and even if it's other things like television or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I know this, the kind of stories that I like to write, are like personal stories, and more than likely they're not commercial kind of
Mm-hmm.
type stories,
Mm-hmm.
but they're more because I love narratives, things that kind of speak and make you think and stuff like that, and you know, causes you to question certain things. But and a lot of those things are not commercial, you know. So like I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, writing stories that are personal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to make them personal, but you know, like I said, I'm open to whether it's I'm not gonna strive. What I'm trying to say, I know we have to put 100% definitely if we want to make it to Hollywood. You know what I mean? We gotta do the hustle. We gotta do the networking and all these things. And I guess to a point, I'm willing to do that. But I think I'm it's more desirous for me to be able to tell a story that I feel that this story needs to be told. Or
Yeah.
someone needs to hear this. So
So speaking of story, what is
Mhm.
you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about your current movie?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's actually I wrote it back in 2012. So I sat on it for a while and then ended up doing another movie um, instead of that one. Yeah, it's wrote it in 2012, and it was based on it was like two brothers who were two Nigerian brothers. I don't know if you remember the story. There was a British soldier by the name of his Lee his Lee Gibsby.
Okay.
Was a British soldier, and he was mowed down by these two Nigerian brothers in London, and they end up cutting him up and chopping him up in the middle of the street.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that
Remember
was
that?
yeah, I remember that story.
So and I was looking at these two, and this is during a time like it's Afghanistan, Iraq, and stuff like that, and I started just to feel like why would people do things like this, like
Hmm.
terrorism and bombing buildings where other innocent people are really getting hurt, but they were trying to go after I guess establishments. Um, so I was thinking about the the person who does something like that, who does an act of terrorism.
Hmm.
There's a reason. It's not. Sometimes it could be just lunatics. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or but they sometimes just they really believe something. You know. Um, so I was thinking about a story uh, that kind of dealt with someone who committed a terrorist act. And why he would commit that act. So the story basically just focuses on the reason or the frame of thought that this person would have to commit a you know, terrorist act.
Hmm.
So basically, the story is about a young shy immigrant that comes to New York after the suicidal death of his father. While he's looking to um, get answers as to why his father died, he discovers a voice. He discovers his own voice, and but basically it's the same voice that killed his father.
Mm.
So it kind of gives a hint as to where that movie's going to go or the story's going to go. But it's based in the plain and simple. It just speaks to the consequence of um, gossip and the
Hmm.
consequence of wrong information or accusation. So a lot of things kind of came into play with the story, and it started to make sense with with cancel culture coming out. And this is before cancel culture in
Mm.
2012 when I first started writing it. But I started to see how we kind of uh, from actors to people who are just accused of things.
Yeah.
And but we don't stop to think, okay, like we're really concerned about mental health and people in their mental health, but you know, sometimes folks, you know, are in deep depression due to how how people respond to them or how people kind of treat them.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that what they haven't done is wrong, but it's just like without having like all the ducks in a row, or not having the full story.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to beat around the bush and not try to give too much away, but it just has to do with his father was falsely accused, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But before he the truth, the real story came out, it was already a wildfire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And which caused his father to go into a depression, and ultimately taking his life.
Okay.
So it deals with a lot of things. Has to do with the media and how how things are portrayed. Like we normally don't see stories recanted, I guess, in time, or let's say like a reporter tells a story and then there's a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't see that the reporter recanted the story, or whoever recanted the story.
Yeah.
And how things, especially with social media, things spread quickly. You know what I mean? And then, so it's a touchy subject, but it just deals with that. Just deals with accusations and the consequence of false accusations and just wrong information, basically.
Once upon a time, there was a king who had 2 sons. These 2 sons adored their father, the king.
Father was under a lot of pressure that no man should be under.
He loved working for the people of the land and serving them as their king. But when word got out, there were those who sought to destroy the king's great name.
When your father came here, I told him to keep his mouth shut and his head down. But he didn't do that.
You think father would be pleased that his son was to destroy his name? Huh?
You can care less what father would think. Go and live your life.
But one of the brothers decided that those responsible for how their father was perceived would be held responsible indeed.
So let the lion speak. Let the lion roar. Let the hunter no longer be.
What did he do? How does it end?
What do you mean?
I mean, does he make those responsible pay? Does the good guy win?
I don't know.
Nimbe, you don't know who you're becoming. Why are you letting anger take you, eh?
Well, to me, it sounds like it's really timely. And it's always interesting when you started writing something before a current societal mindset existed. I mean, I think in the 90s, you started to see this growth of political correctness, which was justifiable to an extent. But it's always like that Frankenstein monster, how much are you going to let it out of the cage? And then at what point does it start devouring everything? And I think, we're kind of at that point right now. I'm a big believer, if somebody says something 20 years ago, people change. I'm a different guy now than I was 10 years ago. We started Feenix Films. My attitude was like, you're either with us or you're against us, and fuck you, and that was my attitude. My attitude now is like, You can be against us. I don't give a shit. I'm still going to do my thing. I'm not going to invest the energy in going to war with you. It doesn't matter. And I think the problem is now, whether it's like Whoopi Goldberg or Joe Rogan, you got to give people an opportunity to say, "Hey, I had an opinion. I said something."
Right.
Everyone's so terrified to say anything nowadays,
Yeah.
and what it's doing, I feel is it's making people afraid to interact with each other, which is the worst thing in the world. I mean, everyone should be interacting with each other as long as you're not a lunatic, but it's like, and a lot of the people that support the cancel culture stuff, they're a little cuckoo, that they God forbid they screw up. And it's not even like, you can't even point. It's not like Star Wars where you can say it's all the Emperor's fault at the end of the day.
Right.
This guy was in the center of everything. It's not like that. You can't find the emperor of cancel culture and cancel them because it's this big amoeba, where the hell's the center, and it sounds like your movie does a very interesting job of kind of approaching that. And it's like, anger and hatred never cares the shape of the vessel. It'll go into any shape. It'll go into any glass. Doesn't matter. It'll fill anything. If you open the lid, it'll go right in. And I think it's interesting that your movie focuses on that. It sounds like it. I haven't seen it yet, but it sounds like it does. And the fact that this person was accused of something incorrectly, and then that creates a rage in the offspring, his son. And then what choice is his son going to make? Because he feels now that society has given him and his father a bad deal.
Exactly.
And it is, we have to be open to talking and having conversations. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do the podcast to start off with was I found that at least the creative people in my circle, maybe not in Hollywood, but in my circle, they like talking, they like having conversations, and everyone knows that everyone doesn't share the same views on everything, but they still talk, and people know, like, people I know have different views than me. I know they're not bad people. They have a different view because they have a different brain and they have different life experiences. If the world was full of Daves, I'd be bored. I'd probably start arguing with Dave, because I'm tired, of Dave. So it's just like,
definitely.
So
if I can just add, I mean, it's okay to disagree. Like we're like you said, we're not going to always agree with each other. And if I tell you, like you said, if there's all these Daves, I would tell you what, Dave is going to be the same. He's not going to grow. You know what I mean? But if Dave met a Sam knows this or has an idea about this, somebody's going to grow. You know what I mean? Because like you said about Whoopi, man, she, I don't know if her coming back, saying that she was wrong wasn't, of course it was encouraged, and it was there's PR people, but the show is called The View, and that's the view she had at the time, and it's okay for her to be wrong. When your children are wrong, you correct them. You don't say, okay, you don't cut them off. Okay, that's it. And of course she's an adult, but still, it's the same concept. So that's the thing, and it's like we, it's like we can't have a difference of opinion, so but that's what the basic, basically the story talks about. This, one of the things it touches on, the importance of getting the facts straight and the story straight, but at the same time, there's consequences to, this whole thing of what we're talking about as far as cancel culture. Somebody's gonna be hurt. Somebody's hurt. You know what I mean? Because we're all human. We all want to be received. We want to be liked. But if you cut somebody off, you know what I mean? And imagine and you think it's a whole society cutting you off, even if it's just a couple of people on Twitter. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And this is a human being. You can correct them. You know what I mean?
So. I hate Twitter so much. I canceled my account I think like 2 years ago. I was just like, I can't do. All social media bugs me to some extent, but Twitter, I was like,
Yeah,
and
Twitter's
I
horrible.
think, yeah, it's just like, how much can you hurt somebody in what is it, 24 characters or something? And it's like there's never been. I said this during the first season of the podcast, and I've talked to other people about it since. There's never been a time in human history where we've had this kind of technology and social media ever. And it's to the point now where like podcasters like Joe Rogan have more viewers than any of the networks, any of the networks' news. And you see certain networks like CNN going after him because he's screwing up their money. So they got to take him down. But the old days, and we're around the same age, so I'm sure you remember this. Ted Koppel, probably one of the most boring news guys ever, but he would talk to people, and he would have this guy on, and then my next guest, and they would come on, and they would sometimes have different views, and then you would walk away and say, "Meh." Like, I personally hate The View. I hate that show. I think it's horrible. I think it's toxic. Yeah, the level, it was good. I think when it first started, it seemed like it was a little bit more positive and productive, but it's become such a cauldron for like hatred and negative. Everything's angry. They're always angry at everybody. But with that being said, and I know most of those ladies would disagree with me, and they're obviously never going to watch this, but they have a right to their opinion.
Sure.
They do, and I want them to have a right to their opinion. It's like I'm not a huge country music fan. I'm also not a huge rap fan, but I'm glad they both exist because other people like them, and it just adds to the colors and the flavor of being alive. I don't need to like. It's a big world, I don't need to like everything. I don't need to like every movie. There's certain directors that people think are amazing. They're the most. I can't stand anything they make. I just don't like it. But you know what? Other people do. And that's okay because those people, this is their moment in the sun. It's fine. I remember, oh man, it had to be as one of the music award shows of the 90s, and Ricky Martin was huge. It was a Livin' La Vida Loca.
Yeah.
And I was a little tired of the song by that point. But I remember Chris Rock was hosting, and he was going on about, he goes, Ricky Martin this, Ricky Martin that. And he's like, Livin' La Vida Loca. I forgot what he said, but it was funny. And then Ricky Martin got up and he was just, he said, he's like, dude, this is just let me have my moment. It was like Chris Rock ripped him so bad, but it was funny. But Ricky Martin was like, I know this isn't going to last forever. I'm not going to be ruining music for all eternity. Right. It's like, this is my moment, just let me have it. And I think as I've gotten older, I've kind of realized that too. Like there can be a director, there can be an actor, there can be whatever, a musician, a viewpoint, someone who's, in the news every day. They're not going to be in the news every day forever. And at some point there'll be something else. And, you will either agree with it, you'll like it, or you won't. And then someone else will. And then that'll pass and, you'll be back. But it's a journey. It's a journey. And then as filmmakers, our whole thing is to try to, okay, how do I take all this and put it into something, which is what, you've done. You started doing 10 years before this was a whole issue, but
right.
And then how do you pronounce the name of the new movie again?
Well, I know I'm screwing it up, but it's Ruri. R-U-R-I.
Ruri.
Ruri. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's a twang to it, but I'm screwing it up. But yeah, it just means to yell or to scream or to roar.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the new title. But,
I know you're going to send me something, so I will drop it into the podcast when I put this all together. Okay. But this was great, man. It was great to reconnect with you, and
yeah, man.
As I've hoped for a while, I hope we get to work on something at some point. It would definitely be a lot of fun.
All right, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Dave.
It's my pleasure. It's awesome to have you on.
Very cool.